The influence of Islam in the modern world is diverse, and it can be attributed to Islamic civilization. Islamic civilization refers to the complex, rich, cultural, scientific, and socio-cultural developments that emerged from the Islamic world, spanning from the 7th century onwards. This civilization is characterized by its vast geographical reach, diverse cultural influences, and significant contributions to various fields of arts. Islamic civilization began with the advent of Islam in the 7th century CE, marked by the Prophet Muhammad's mission in Mecca and Medina. Following Muhammad's death, the Rashidun, Umayyad, and Abbasid Caliphates expanded Islamic rule across a vast territory from the Iberian Peninsula in the west to the Indian subcontinent in the east. Islamic civilization has clashed with the West, Orthodox and Buddhist civilizations, just to name a few, and its expansion facilitated the exchange of ideas, cultures, and technologies amongst diverse populations. This video was a deep dive into Islamic civilization, examining its historical origins, ideology, and its current socio-cultural impacts. Get ready for an intriguing and exciting investigation into one of the world's most significant civilizations. The beginning of Islam can be traced back to the 7th century CE in the Arabian Peninsula, specifically in the city of Mecca. Islam was founded by the Prophet Muhammad, who was born around 570 CE in Mecca, which is now in modern-day Saudi Arabia. At the age of 40, in 610 CE, Muhammad began receiving divine revelations through the Archangel Gabriel, translating to Jibreel in Arabic. These revelations, which continued throughout his life, form the basis of the Quran, the holy book of Islam. The core message of these revelations was the existence of a single God, Allah, which sharply contradicted the beliefs prevalent to the Arabian Peninsula at the time. Muhammad's monotheistic message faced opposition from other groups in Mecca who feared it would disrupt their trade and social order. However, Muhammad's power grew steadily, and in 629 CE, he was able to return to Mecca and conquer it with minimal resistance. By the year 632, Muhammad and the Muslims controlled the Arabian Peninsula. Following Muhammad's death in 632, the early Muslim caliphates rapidly expanded through military campaigns, conquering vast territories in the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe within a century. Overall, Islam spread through military conquest, trade, and peaceful conversion over several centuries. Islam has historically clashed with several civilizations and empires for various reasons. These clashes are often characterized by prolonged and violent conflicts through deep-seated religious and cultural differences. The early expansion of Islam into Europe saw conflicts between the Islamic world and the Spaniards, Byzantines, and much of Western Europe. Some of these conflicts, like the Crusades and Reconquista, were some of the most profound religious conflicts in human history. That being said, Islamic civilization also came into conflict with Hindu civilization during the medieval periods, Sinaitic civilization with Muslim minorities and the Chinese government, and also Jewish civilization through the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict. A driving factor for Islamic conquest were the doctrines of Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam. Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam are Islamic concepts used to categorize the world from a Muslim perspective. Dar al-Islam refers to territories where Muslims can freely practice their religion and often implies areas that are under Islamic rule or governance. Dar al-Harb, literally meaning territory of war, referring to places where Islam cannot be practiced without persecution. These terms are not found in the Quran or the Hadith, but are legal, theological, and political constructs developed by Islamic scholars. It's important to remember that these concepts are not static, but have been subject to interpretation and debate among Muslim scholars throughout history. Practical implications of these terms have been discussed, such as what does it mean to be a Muslim in Dar al-Islam versus Dar al-Harb, and some scholars have argued that to be truly part of the Muslim community, one had to be in Dar al-Islam, while others suggested that living in Dar al-Harb could be a strategy to expand Islamic influence. Concepts have been evolved and been reinterpreted over time, with disagreements among scholars and rulers about which physical territories they described. The objective of expanding Dar al-Islam through jihad was not necessarily to forcibly convert non-believers, but to extend the jurisdiction of Islamic governance. It's crucial to understand that these terms are a part of a complex theological and political framework which should not be oversimplified or used to promote a clash of civilization narrative. The concepts of Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb were developed by early Islamic jurists almost a century after Muhammad. During this period, Islamic jurists elaborated on the theory that the world outside the domain of Islam was collectively Dar al-Harb, and the normal relationship between it and the Muslim state was considered to be war. The Rashidun and Umayyad Caliphates also continued the expansion by the Prophet Muhammad to extend Dar al-Islam through jihad. This was similar to the Muslim conquest of the Persians, which was motivated by territorial expansion and the spread of Islam. This isn't new for many world civilizations where the quest for power, resources and land is a key reason for territorial expansion. Deeper ideological conflicts in Islamic civilization were evident in the Muslim conquest of the Iberian Peninsula, where Islam was brought into direct conflict with the Christian kingdoms in Europe. This led to centuries of warfare, including Reconquista in Spain and the Crusades, which represented a major clash between Islamic and Christian forces over control of the Holy Land. The conflict was driven by religious motivations as well as political and economic factors. Islam teaches respect and tolerance towards other religions, but while also maintaining that Islam is the final and complete revelation from God. Islam recognizes and respects other Abrahamic faiths, particularly Judaism and Christianity, as people of the book. Muslims are instructed to treat them with kindness and respect, and the Quran emphasizes freedom of religion and prohibits forced conversions. The Quran also instructs, do not argue with the people of the scripture except in the way that is best. At the same time, Islam maintains that it is the final and complete revelation from God, superseding previous world religions and their teachings. Muslims believe that earlier scriptures were corrupted over time, while the Quran remains preserved in its original form. Thus, Islam condemns polytheism and idolatry, considering the worship of anyone or anything other than Allah as a grave sin. This is a key reason why the Islamic world conflicts with Hindu civilization and Hinduism, which believes in many gods and the worshipping of idols. Centralized government in the Islamic civilization involved, with different dynasties implementing various administrative structures. The initial Rashidun Caliphate had a relatively decentralized structure, but this did change over time. It began to develop more centralized governance by shifting capital cities, minting Islamic coins, and developing more sophisticated bureaucracies with governors overseeing smaller political bodies. The key features of centralized Islamic governance were a caliphate, where the political religious state was ruled by a caliph, and also a bureaucracy, where a sophisticated administrative system with various officials and departments managed the state affairs. That also being said, Islamic civilization also had central tax collection systems, including a special tax for non-Muslim subjects. The central government organized and maintained a strong army, and religious law was heavily upheld. Arabic became the primary language of the administrations, facilitating centralized control. Minting coins also helped standardize the economy. While embracing centralized governments, many Muslims also supported religious involvement in politics. For example, in Southeast Asia and the Middle East, majorities favor religious leaders having some influence over political matters. It's important to remember that the degree of centralization varied across different Islamic societies. Some areas maintain more localized governance structures and still acknowledge the overall authority of the caliphate. Islamic teachings played a significant role in shaping social structures. The Quran and the Hadith emphasize principles such as equality before God, social justice, and the importance of charity. However, the implementation of these principles varied, leading to diverse social hierarchies. Islam teaches that all Muslims are equal in the eyes of God, which theoretically promotes a classless society. One of the 5 pillars of Islam, zakat, mandates wealth redistribution to support the poor and reduce economic disparities. There's also the concept of the Ummah, which is the sense of brotherhood and mutual responsibility among Muslims to act these out. Despite these egalitarian ideals, Islamic societies developed distinct social hierarchies driven by various factors. In the Islamic world, citizens were seen as Muslims and non-Muslims, and also Arab Muslims and non-Arab Muslims. In urban areas, the elite, wealthy merchants, and land-owning families held significant power over religious and economic institutions. Slavery was also a prevalent institution, with enslaved people often performing skilled labor or serving in administrative and military roles. Enslaved Turkic soldiers, for example, known as Mamluks, even rose to political power, establishing the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt. Early Islamic societies were organized around patriarchal clans, with family leadership vested in the eldest male. Women's lives varied significantly based on socioeconomic status and also political context. Elite women often held limited public roles, but could exert considerable influence through wealth and patronage. Non-elite women participated in various economic activities, including trade and agriculture. It's important to note that these factors were not driven by Islamic belief because it's not in the Quran and therefore subject to other political, animalistic, and sociological forces that all human beings inhabit. While some criticize Islamic civilization for acting on troubled behaviors, it's an unfair criticism because it's not motivated by the Quran per se. Islam itself as a religion has significantly influenced politics, Islamic countries, and also other civilizations throughout its history. It's evident in aspects of governance, law, and social organization. The most direct example of Islam's influence on politics can be seen in the early Islamic Caliphates. After the death of Muhammad in 632, the Rashidun and also the Umayyad Caliphates were governed according to Islamic principles, with the Quran and the Hadith serving as the primary sources of law. The concept of Sharia, or Islamic law, became central to the political and legal systems of these early Islamic states. Sharia, derived from the Quran and the Sunnah, which are the teachings and practices of Muhammad, guided various aspects of governance, including criminal law, family law, and economic policies. After the death of Muhammad, the Islamic world split between Shia and Sunni Muslims as to whether the next leader of Islam should be a direct descendant of Muhammad himself. It was Shia Muslims that advocated for this, whereas Sunni Muslims thought it was more important that the Muslims agreed on the next leader. The Ottoman Empire provides another significant example of Islam's influence on politics. The Sultan, which was the leader of the Ottoman Empire, held both political and religious authority as the Caliph and the leader of the Muslim community. The empire's legal system was based on a combination of Sharia and Qanun, which is Sultan's law, demonstrating the integration of Islamic principles with practical governance needs. In the modern era, the influence of Islam on politics is evident in various forms across different countries. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia follows a strict interpretation of Sunni Islam, also known as Wahhabism. The Quran is considered the constitution, and Sharia is the basis of the legal system. The 20th century saw the rise of Islamism, a political ideology that seeks to implement Islamic principles in governance. Islamist movements have played significant roles in various countries. Groups like the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt in 1928 influenced political discourse across the Muslim world, advocating for the implementation of Islamic principles in governance. Another example is the modern state of Pakistan, which was founded in 1947 as a homeland for Muslims in Southeast Asia. Its constitution, for example, declares Islam as the state religion and requires all laws to be in conformity with Islamic teachings. Many Muslim-majority countries incorporate elements of Sharia into their legal systems, particularly in areas of personal status law. In countries like Egypt, Jordan, and Morocco, family law is largely based on Islamic principles. Islamic inheritance, which specifies shares for different family members, are followed in many Muslim countries. Some countries, such as Saudi Arabia and Iran, apply Islamic criminal law, including hudud punishments for apostasy, revolt against the ruler, theft, highway robbery, adultery, slander, and also drinking alcohol. During the Islamic Golden Age, which is between the 8th and 13th centuries, the world experienced significant advancements in agriculture and food supply, often referred to as the Arab Agricultural Revolution. This period saw the introduction of new crops, innovative farming techniques, and extensive irrigation systems. Muslim traders and farmers introduced a variety of new crops around the Islamic world, facilitating an agricultural revolution. These crops included sorghum from Africa, citrus fruits from China, and other products like rice, cotton, and sugarcane from India. These introductions led to increased agricultural diversity and productivity, significantly impacting the economy, population distribution, and urban growth. Islamic civilization developed a sophisticated economic system over many centuries, incorporating various principles and practices derived from Islamic teachings. Islamic economics is based on several core principles derived from the Quran and the Sunnah. Islam forbids the charging or paying off interest on loans, considering it as a form of exploitation. This is considerably different to Western free market capitalism, which sees the market being the ultimate decider of proper economic practice. Zakat is also an important part of Islamic economic practice too. Zakat is a mandatory charitable contribution, typically 2.5% of your wealth, and that is to be distributed to the poor and needy. This underlying Islamic consciousness is that economic activities should adhere to moral and ethical standards, avoiding fraud, exploitation, and unjust enrichment. Islamic civilization was also to be able to create its own banking system with financial institutions that operate without charging interest and instead using profit-sharing arrangements and other Sharia-compliant methods. The cultural expressions of Islamic civilization cannot be forgotten. Islamic civilization has a rich tapestry of cultural expressions that span a wide range of artistic, architectural, literary, and social practices. These expressions have evolved over centuries and have been influenced by various indigenous cultures, while also contributing significantly to the global cultural heritage. Islamic visual arts are renowned for their intricate designs, vibrant colors, and the use of geometric patterns and calligraphy. The art is not just decorative, but also carries deep symbolical meaning. Arabic calligraphy is a prominent art form in Islamic culture and often used to transcribe the Quran and decorate buildings, manuscripts, and other objects. It is considered a high art form due to its association with the text of Islam. Islamic architecture is one of the most visible and enduring legacies of Islamic civilization. It includes a variety of styles and structures, from mosques and palaces to gardens and public buildings. Mosques are central to Islamic architecture, as they often feature courtyards, minarets, domes, and mihrabs, which are niches indicating the direction of Mecca. When it comes to literature, Islamic literature is diverse, encompassing poetry and religious texts. It has been written in various languages, including Arabic, Persian, Turkish, and Urdu. Persian poets like Rumi and Hafez are celebrated for their mystical and philosophical themes, and Arabic poetry is known to focus on themes of love, morality, and the divine. The Quran is a central religious text, but other significant works include the Hadith, collections of theological writings that have shaped Islamic thought and practice. Islamic music and performing arts vary widely across different regions, but share some common features. It is characterized by intricate melodies and rhythms, and in some cultures it is closely linked to religious practice, such as the Sufi tradition of Qawwali music. While some Islamic cultures have restrictions on dance and theatre, others have rich traditions such as whirling dervishes of the Sufi order and shadow puppetry in Southeast Asia. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing and liking the video for more content like this.